And now we present to you Thac0 with Advantage.
Welcome to Thac0 with Advantage. We're two friends that have been playing D&D a long time. While we both love lots of other RPGs, D&D has the lucky number that keeps coming up. Hi, I'm Ange, and I'm still recovering from the holiday season. While it disrupted regular gaming, I still got to game and see loved ones, which is good considering how long I've been gaming and running Gnome Stew. So let's get on with this.
And I am your friendly podcast editor, Chris. And while it was the holiday season, I just kept gaming while taking a break from gaming to work and see loved ones during the holidays. This is probably the most holiday season gaming I've done in my 46 years on this planet.
Alas, poor Jared is not with us this evening because he had a holiday cold, but he should be back in our next episode.
His throat is like freezing up on him, so send him well wishes. Pray for him. Pray to the glorious gods above to rain down healing light upon his throat.
He almost joined us tonight and then realized he couldn't talk longer than 10 minutes without his voice deciding to hurt him.
So, after we look at the games that we're going to be running in the campaign journal, at least we'll look at Ange's games. I'm not going to really talk about mine. I have something else to talk about. We'll be talking about how player agency doesn't mean infinite choice. Then we'll have some recommendations of D&D related content for you to check out in our downtime research segment. Now stand by for station identification. This is WD&D the Role Player. Now we're going to McElroy McKinney and the Bardic College.
You may have heard that early D&D had the role of a caller. That was the person that coordinates all of the actions of the rest of the PCs and presents the final answer for what the party is doing to the DM. But where can you find more about that role and what it does? Well, not in the original edition of the D&D Rules. That's those brown box white booklets. Also not in the AD&D First Edition Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, does that mean that OD&D and AD&D First Edition didn't expect you to have a caller? Oh, no, they did. They just didn't tell you what it was. Both sources include the concept and their examples of play, although the DMG calls it the lead character instead of the caller. It's one of those rules from the tabletop wargaming hobby that you should just know if you were playing D&D. But wait, you're old like me and remember the caller was definitely defined somewhere. And yes, it was. In the BX Basic set, the caller is defined as the player whose job it is to listen to all of the other players, clarify what the party wants to do, and present it to the DM. Hard to believe players these days are so soft that they need you to explain the rules instead of just implying them from examples. What's gaming coming to?
Let me just finish up this campaign journal.
So between now and when we last spoke, there's been a whole holiday season. Since Jared and I last recorded, we did get to play his Marodi game, and I was supposed to play 3 sessions of City of Cowls and 2 of Victoriana. Unfortunately, scheduling snafus got in the way, and the middle session of City of Cowls got canceled due to an illness in the GM's house.
Boo!
And both Victoriana sessions got canceled. The first because one player's daughter and her girlfriend were coming home for the holidays, and the most recent session got canceled because I was not ready. I was still full of cheese and not knowing what day of the week it was post-holidays.
Double boo, but those are good reasons.
Yeah. There were a couple of holiday one-shots, though, which I will talk about. Now, in Marodi, I'll just touch on this briefly. We got into the nitty-gritty of trying to take back the city of Chimeras from Glavistus' forces. And Jared did a really cool thing, which I will probably try and get him to talk about in an upcoming episode where we talk about skill challenges, because he basically had us do various skill challenges to choose how we were approaching taking the city. Suffice it to say, we did pretty well. We're 14th level characters, and if Kazina got to use stealth, she's pretty much a ghost. I did try and change up what skills I used for her, but as a 14th level rogue, any skill she is trained in, she can't get a lower than 10 on the dice. So, as we talked about in a recent episode, sometimes playing at the higher levels is a little harder on the GM.
That's true. That sounds cool, though. I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, it was really cool. He had some very interesting ways to handle all of that, and we definitely need to get him to talk about that.
Tell me about the City of Cowls.
With that one, at the beginning of the month, we had a conversation with Gorgo, one of Asmodeus's generals.
That's a devil, by the way, just so you know.
Devil, the lawful ones.
Yes.
she felt betrayed by the fact that he had been involved with the breaking of the veil between the abyss and the prime plane, which let the demons invade. You know, as far as she was concerned, they were supposed to always be at war with the demons, and this was Asmodeus betraying the pact he had made with the devils. So she offered to help us, and she was willing to open a gate that would take us directly to the soul repository where all the souls for the tieflings are held. But first, we wanted to deal with something that was threatening the tree of life that we had planted a couple of sessions ago. And she basically offered to send 2 devils with us. I think they were chain devils. I don't remember specifically. As Dove, I asked them what their names were, and they were confused why they would need names. So she started calling them Salt and Pepper. So we left to go deal with the Tree of Life, also accompanied by Creed Morthian, who we used to call the Emissary. He was once a paladin of Asmodeus. He has since switched his allegiance to Palor.
That's the heel face turn guy.
Yeah. Except it was in the favor of good.
Yeah, they're the heel face turn. He turned from heel to face instead of the face heel turn. I don't know. I don't know how that actually. Man, my kayfabe and my wrestling knowledge is lax. I probably shouldn't have said anything, but there you go.
Well, you also said it to me, and I know absolutely nothing about wrestling other than that my brother yells when he's watching it.
Oh, there you go.
Oh. So we traveled through the city on the other side of the water there to get to the Tree of Life, and we came across a group of adventurers who took a very pointed interest in Rhee's armor, the panoply of gold, a mark of the long-ago Dragonborn Empire. Now, we were trying to be polite, but they were really giving us the heebie-jeebies. So we parted ways and continued on, and we realized they were following us. So we kind of laid a trap where it looked like Rhee had fallen behind with Modron, like fixing her boot or something like that. And basically it turned out that they were in the service of an ancient black dragon named Kazeldrath, who had a magical means of seeing what they could see through 2 magical eyepieces that 2 of these adventurers wore.
It's kind of cool.
She was very interested in getting her hands on that armor. So we fought, we took them out, we took both of those eyepieces and tossed them in a bag of holding so she can't see anything anymore.
Kazeldrath, the scourge of acidic death. I love dragon names, right? Kazeldrath.
Oh, dragon names are the best. We got to the Tree of Life, spoke to Kiona, the druid that was kind of guarding it, and then we entered the rift where we knew there were demons trying to break through. There we fought a Malidus, which serves Orcus. There's a lot of names here that are important.
Lord have mercy. Or like Orcus is involved too? Like everyone's involved in this thing, man.
Yeah. No, the GM's pulling out all the stops. So we fought the Malidus, and Dove got the last hit on it, like the killing blow. And the snakehead on the Malidus basically turned to look at her and basically cursed her, saying she's going to have to keep an eye out for Orcus coming for her. It's not an actual curse. She asked like a god, am I actually cursed? No, she's not actually cursed. It's still something that's kind of hanging over her head that she's going to have to be careful about. But from there, we went to the Celestial Plane to update the gods on what we'd been doing and get our next instructions, and they agreed with our plan to work with Gorgo to get into the Soul Repository. Next session, we arrived back at the gates to the city risen from the ocean where Gorgo waited at the gate. We noticed across the sea a black thing flying over the city on the shoreline, and we figured out that was Kazeldrath. So we pulled out the eyepieces and kind of put them on to taunt her, to basically say, look, here we are, we're at the gate, and kind of laid an ambush for her. Yes, she spit a lot of acid. She nearly took Dove out because I was a little too close to where she was, and she was claw, bite, slash.
Wing buffet, tail slap.
In one round, Dove is the squishiest member of the party, and she went from having 73 hit points plus 12 temporary hit points to suddenly having 15 hit points.
Bad.
Yeah, it was like, oh, that hurt, because I, Ange, the player, and Dove, the character, did not know that, generally speaking, ancient dragons can see through invisibility.
That's bad for you.
Yeah, that was really bad. We got back to Gorgo and ended up creating a deal with her. She wanted an actual official contract where she would gate us into the repository, give us the true name of Artemalak, the demon that ran the place, as long as we provide her with Asmodeus's sword and crown once we defeat him, and that she would pull the devils back from actively trying to claim the mortal plane. The story in the setting is that Asmodeus wants to destroy all mortal life because when he was an angel or whatever it was, his beloved was killed by the titans that spawned mortals. It's convoluted. It's properly fantasy setting epic, but it's basically he wants us all dead. She could give a shit. So give her the tools to rule and we can go our separate ways. Once we were in the repository, we had a cool fight with lots of little demons, some mid-tier demons, and Artemalak, who was pretty tough. We had gotten through most of the low-level and mid-tier stuff, but we wanted to get information out of the big guy because we weren't sure whether just taking all of the souls would work or what we needed to do. And so, as kind of a last resort, Anu whispered his true name to him, which immediately changed the tenor of the whole fight. The GM let us know that this is something that the characters wouldn't have had any idea, but the GM let us know that using his true name basically nullified all of his special powers and defenses.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so instantly he's like, oh, I don't want to die. Let's have a conversation. Let's ignore that fight we just had. Let's talk. Next was a cat and mouse game of whether or not we were going to nullify the contract or amend it. In the end, Anu decided to amend it because if she nullified it, all tieflings would immediately revert to human. And she was not on board with that. She was pretty happy being a tiefling, didn't want to lose her tail, didn't want to lose her horns. She's like, no, I'm good with this. So we danced with Artemalak to rewrite the contract so that every tiefling would regain their soul. It would join the same dance of life and death that other mortals have, and they would be able to choose whether or not they stay as a tiefling or become human. You know, it was quite a few roles to basically kind of make sure he wasn't trying to pull one over on us, that we got what we wanted, that Anu got what we wanted, and then we got out of there. We basically immediately gated back to the Celestial Realm where Pelor was waiting for us. And it was just him, none of his retainers, none of the other gods. And he seemed a little agitated, like he was trying to do something before anyone else realized. He explained to us that we would not be able to kill Asmodeus in hell. We had to do it on the Prime Plane because he's originally from the Prime Plane. And since he, Pelor, had created an edict that prevented it, it could not be broken without destroying the fabric of the universe. So therefore, if he was no longer involved, those edicts were no longer in play. So he basically reached into his heart, pulled out a glowing ball of sunlight, handed it to Modrum, told him he'd know what to do with it when the time was right, and then disappeared. And we're all like, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
Cord came in, we found out all the details. It's actually really cool being at this stage of this epic level campaign.
Hanging out with gods.
Especially after I just listened to like all of the Critical Role stuff on, you know, Downfall and Calamity and Divergence and all this stuff dealing with gods. Our next session isn't until February because more scheduling conflicts. We will likely pick up heading to Indus for a big battle with both the devils and the demons and all our allies we've made throughout the campaign.
Hey, look, it's Act 3.
I don't know if we have one more session left or 2 more sessions left. It's probably 2, but it's still like, this has been a long time coming. Now, because of the holiday season, another friend offered to run a couple of one-shots. These were D&D scenarios that she ran in the early 2000s using D&D 3.0/3.5, but she had converted them to Savage Worlds, so we got to play them in a new system. The first one was Dragon's Bargain, where we basically found a party of adventurers scamming a town by playing the big damn heroes, but not actually doing a whole lot of stuff. We also got to fight a derpy dragon. And then the other one, which is such a fun concept, All Growed Up. We got to play kids between the ages of 8 and 11 who one morning wake up as the adult adventurers they would pretend to be when we played together. And that was a ton of fun. We had to figure out what happened to us, what happened to the town. My 8.5-year-old tiny girl woke up as a 6'5" barbarian, and she was very excited that she could reach the cookie jar.
Yeah. Then she could have as many cookies as she wanted.
Yes. Although my sister was one of the other PCs, and she kept yelling at her.
That's funny.
What about you, Chris?
I guess I'll talk a little bit about the games that I am playing this year, because I have 4 ongoing campaigns. One of them just started, actually. But not all of them are fantasy, right? I'm running a Delta Green campaign. It just started. That was really fun. It was a really good session. I'm running a game called Rapscallion. I've talked about it before, I think, on the show. It's a pirate powered by the apocalypse game. Ours is a little different because we set it in what is called the Pirate Wasteland, which is a post-apocalyptic kind of water worldy, but with lots of weird type stuff going on. The weird is the magic stuff in Rapscallion. That's been a blast. I'm running my Streets of Avalon game. I'm actually running and playtesting the campaign that will come out when I actually release the game, called The Whispers of Erlig. We started the 3rd scenario with them, and then I'm running Motherboard, which is Daggerheart via a bit of like fantasy cyberpunkiness, I guess. It's not really cyberpunk. There's lots of like robots and whatnot. And it's like a lot of computer-esque kind of lingo and references in a fantasy-esque type world.
Is that the one people have said is very similar to Horizon Zero Dawn?
Yeah, it's got a whole mechanic in there for like, you beat up the remnants, you take their parts, and you can use that stuff to build other things. I have it very much built into the game, and I've even expanded upon it for the groups that I am playing with. They even have a base now where they can upgrade their base using some of those pieces and parts and whatnot. And they've made friends enough that they get discounts in certain places.
That's awesome.
But the thing that I am going to do this year, and this is a thing that I think would be interesting to challenge other people to do, is I am keeping track of my games with my like gaming log, my gaming calendar log. It's a calendar. I want to have a calendar of games at the end of this upcoming year to see which games happened when and how much I've actually played. Because I know I play a lot of games, but I don't know exactly how many games I actually play.
That is a neat idea.
So it is currently January 5th, and I already have 3 games in the log. So there's that.
I have two.
I'll have another one in 2 days because I'm running a game on Wednesday.
I technically should have had 3 because I was supposed to run Victoriana on Sunday, but
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet.
So yeah, there we go. That's what I would love to see people do that. If you're going to give that a try, then let me know. I'm curious, and maybe like every once in a while when I pop on, I'll like update at least with the number of games that I have played.
Join us in our Discord, and you can share it there.
I will. Yeah, totally do that. You can find the link in the show notes to this episode. It's there. HollyGameRoad.us. This is our Eldritch Invocation. We have a Patreon, so if you'd like to help us make this show and provide some additional content for you, we would love if you decide to join it. We have our own Discord, but you don't need to be a patron to get to the Discord. You just come join the Discord. In fact, just come join the Discord and talk to us. We love that. But on the Patreon, we regularly release additional content, like Jared's Experience Points by Difficulty encounter, which is an alternate method for handing out XP in your games. It's up there right now. You can also just join the Patreon as a free member, and if you do that, you will get the RPG tips collected from Blue Sky that we put out pretty much daily. They come out daily. But I've been collecting them in the 20 blocks and then releasing them on the Patreon if you don't have Blue Sky or you don't care about that and you just want to see what they are. And I also do RPG blog posts, mostly about the Streets of Avalon role-playing game development, but I also put other gaming-related thoughts on there, much to Anne's chagrin. She's like, just put it on the Gnome Stew, Chris. Just put it on the Gnome Stew. And I'm like, but content for the Patreon. But content for the Patreon.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
Also, if you want, there's a lot of PDFs up there of different 5e content. You can pop in for a month if you wanted to and just grab all of the previous stuff that exists. Feel free. That is at www.patreon.com/THAC0WA.
Welcome to the Dungeon Master's Workshop.
One of the sacred cows of GM advice is giving your players the agency to do whatever they want with their characters. But at the same time, there are a ton of horror stories from GMs having their fun and games ruined by players refusing to engage with the game they brought to the table, i.e. engaging with their free choice and doing whatever, but that whatever being something not what the GM was trying to run at the table. So today, we're going to talk about player agency and how that shouldn't mean infinite choice. So first, let's define it. What do we mean by player agency?
So player's agency is a player's freedom and ability to make meaningful choices within a game, influencing its story, world, or mechanics, ranging from moment-to-moment actions to strategic decisions.
You'll find a lot of people find the opposite of player agency is the railroad. You'll hear, oh, we were just railroaded into doing what the GM wanted us to. So that's kind of the opposite end of what player agency is supposed to mean.
Sure, I would agree with that. That seems reasonable.
Let's take a moment and ask, what do the official D&D rules say about letting the players do anything?
Well, Jared did us a favor and went and looked this up, which I appreciate, so thank you, Jared, if you're listening to this. The introduction to the 2024 Player's Handbook stresses that you are portraying a character informed by the rules later in the book, working as part of a team, very important, reacting to the world as it is presented by the DM. You can respond to them in any way you can imagine, guided by the rules in this book.
Technically wide open.
I hate that definition a little bit. We can talk about it later, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into it. So let's talk about the type of problems this freedom causes.
Okay, I have all kinds of thoughts about this, and I assume you just want me to answer it so that you can respond to what I'm saying. Is that the plan here? I'm just asking you what that's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, let's basically, like, this is the next talking point. Let's get into it.
Sure. So when the players think it means they can do anything they want and ignore the within a game part from our definition, glitch breaking the game for one's amusement is only for one's amusement in a play space that should be about collaboration. To me, that is the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I have several horror stories of players who basically decided that the height of their fun was to ruin the game for everyone else at the table by making it impossible to engage with the adventure the GM brought to the game.
Yeah, and that's, to me, that's stupid. Like,
It's bad.
It's almost, to me, that kind of thing, like talking about how to fix that's not worth talking about to fix, because the fix is that person shouldn't be allowed at the table.
Yeah.
If their goal is to ruin the game for their own amusement and sacrifice everybody else's amusement, then we shouldn't be playing with that person.
No, but there is a degree of, basically way back when I was writing for Rogue Princess Squadron, we did a series on the gamer social fallacies. And there is a lot of struggle in gaming groups because we are a whole bunch of nerds where we don't want to kick somebody out.
Yeah.
We don't want to be mean. We don't want to kick somebody out. And as a result, a lot of times we end up putting up with bad behavior like that for longer than we should.
No, that's true.
But when it comes down to it, that player should not be in a cooperative game with other players because they're not there for everyone to have fun. They're only there for their own amusement.
I don't think that's really what we're talking about here, but that is a good thing to be aware of. Because that's hard. I mean, there's no fix for that, really.
Yeah, but I do think it does brush up against this topic because there are players who are like, I should be allowed to do anything in this game, regardless of what the GM has prepped, regardless of what the GM wants us to do.
All right, let's get into the actual things that we're talking about then. Like, we're talking about freedom, right? And people have that's a mismanaged expectation, in my opinion. Because to me, that's when the game's parameters are not clear, right? Like, and like I said, you have that mismatch of expectations. And what I'm talking about by game's parameters are the game's rules, the setting expectations, the situation expectations. That's like the scenario stuff, like what the players and the characters are expected to be doing. Once again, players' expectations, like what they feel like they should be doing. Like, do they understand and have they brought what they think they or what they want to be doing? And then the GM's expectations, like what game are they providing? Like what is the ideas behind it and the themes and like some of the play style stuff. When any of those things don't match up, this can create an issue where people feel like they're either being railroaded or the GM feels like they're being bullied by the players to like do things that they're not comfortable with doing or comfortable with doing. Preparedness is about being comfortable with running the game, right?
Yeah.
If you are not prepared to do X, then you are not comfortable with running that part of the game or the game that way. And I think that's really the thing that we're talking about, that those 5 spaces for expectation.
And I do think it does sometimes takes experience and, learning through doing to figure out what expectations you need to set up for your players when you're starting a new game.
Oh yeah, I mean we've talked about session 0 tons of times, right? And we're talked about like even just like setting up the games, and maybe you have your own group, you can't select your own players, but all these things are doable things right here. I mean, just explaining those 5 areas really helps you like understand like, oh, I should probably just talk about these things with the people in the group. I
have been very careful about telling my players the parameters with which they can make their characters.
Smart.
Because I've had bad experiences where the players don't have enough of a guideline. They come to the table and all of a sudden you've got a few characters that are just not going to work together.
Yeah. Look, my Delta Green game. So Delta Green, for people that don't know, you are generally government agents or people that work for the government inside of the government as part of a secret organization in the government that is dealing with unnatural threats. It is a spin-off of Call of Cthulhu, but it's not the same game anymore. It's its own game now. I told them all, like, look, I know that our world is in a kind of a rough spot, and some people might not be interested in playing with government agents, but that's what this game is about. If you don't want to do that, then maybe you shouldn't play this game, and that's okay. Like, I understand that. And then I also put, like, lines of veils, like, no one can play an ICE agent because I'm not comfortable with that. Just things like that. Like, I set the expectations for character creation and, like, backgrounds in that way, because that game, the backgrounds matter a lot, because it is on the players as their characters to figure out how to subvert their agencies to get to missions and to also lie and abuse their agencies for resources. So like, that's why you're going to be a government agent. So I didn't just say you have to be a government agent. I gave them the reasons why too. So
yeah,
that is the step thing. Like, you tell them why the rules, we're using these sets of rules for character creation, and then explain to them why we're using these sets of rules for character creation. That sets an expectation that is hard to get around, or at least people can make an informed choice then.
Yeah. So how do we limit choice while still respecting player agency?
So the previously stated things, the rules, the setting expectations, the situation expectations, the player's expectations, or the GM's expectations. Once you have all of those things together, and that doesn't mean like somebody dictates. I mean, you can do it that way if you want, because then you can give people a choice, but somebody has to take the lead, right? Like, whoever that is, usually it's the game master. In the more traditional space, it's the game master. You set it up. Here's my expectations for this. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have anything they want to get out of this? And then the players can provide their additional pieces. Because, I mean, this is Thac0 with advantage. You've heard me and Ange talk. Ange is kind of like, when she plays story games, she adds a little bit more trad to it. When I play trad games, I add a little bit more story game to it. But in this space, the game master has generally a larger portion of the responsibility and power for this stuff. But that doesn't mean the players can't ask questions and put their stuff forward. And they should.
Yeah. And good players generally come to the table understanding they're there to play the game the GM is bringing to the table. Yes, there are going to be times where that game is not good or that game has problems. That's when you have a conversation with the GM about how that game is not going the places the GM wanted it to be. But you still sit down at that table to play that game. You're not the jerk from our earlier comment who's basically trying to screw with things just because they can.
Yeah, and if you have inexperienced players or people that are not used to this kind of format of playing games, which I think sometimes we overlook that, like the people that don't really understand what's going on, being clear like this about these areas will help them find a way to be more comfortable inside of it, because now they have their own parameters instead of, I love the idea of people being like, man, you want to come play a role-playing game? They're like, what's a role-playing game? It's all, you get to play this character in a fictional setting and you can do anything you want. That's like intimidating. The things that we just laid out are like the parameters for like playing inside of, so it's not anything you want. It's like, come play a character in this kind of story.
Also, that telling them they can do anything they want often ends up backfiring when they do get to the table and they're like, I want to do this thing. And somebody's like, you can't do that. That's not in the rules.
Correct. I
saw in a group conversation where a relatively new GM was asking, I have a player who wants to play a kobold necromancer. This is a low-level game. They're starting at first level. He wants to play a kobold necromancer who's not very good at it yet, but he was able to raise one undead gnoll. How do I do this? And there were so many people in the comments telling him, don't. You're new. You make the players play what's in the rules. And it's like, oh, come on.
That's pretty bad advice, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really bad advice. Why would you want to ruin that new player's fun? Okay, take the kobold rules for playing them is in Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters, and just retheme a familiar.
Yeah, so I guess the way that I mean that would be fine, right? Like I agree with you, Ange. Like that is perfectly acceptable. I think the first thing I assume this person came to the forums to ask, or whatever group this was to like figure out how to do it because they wanted to do it because they're like, are you comfortable doing this? I will be when I have enough information is basically what I'm getting from this conversation. And then it's like, okay, well, the thing that you said is then the thing that is suggested. And then you can go and do that.
Right.
There's all those other questions too. It's like, well, what was your game about? Does it make sense to have a kobold necromancer? Did you explain that to them?
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm getting at when we're talking about player agency and stuff like that. And I am constantly like, my players are asking me for stuff in all these games that are slightly outside the rules or whatever. I'm like, well, let's take a look at it. And then I will adjust based on that. And it's going to sound like a brag, and I don't mean it to be, but like I've played a lot of games. I've done a bunch of game design. Like when I look at a game book, I'm like looking for how the game works. So I'm trying to understand how mechanics function so I don't bust the game up and make it unbalanced. And by unbalanced, I mean giving one player more of an advantage than everybody else at the table. So if you're not that good at that, you do what this person did. You go and look for help, and then you ignore the people that tell you not to, and you find the people that give you some ideas and decide what works for you.
There's still some grognards out there that are mad at players getting to be able to play a tiefling.
Can't do anything about them though, man. Like
yeah, they're gonna grognard. So is this always a bad player problem? I don't think it is, but what can GMs do when their players aren't picking up what they're putting down?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think the bad player is the thing. Like there's bad players.
Yeah, it can be a bad player problem, but it's not always a bad player problem.
Yes. And I don't think it's about bad game masters either. I mean, I think we'd have to define what constitutes bad in this situation, right? I do think it's more about these ideas. Expectations understood, skill level when it comes to creating and adapting to the game's parameters, and social ability to make what you're trying to accomplish meaningful to the game and meaningful and understood by the other players including the game master. Like those three pieces right there are, I think, what matters the most when we're talking about player agency and how to get your points across.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think people talk about this stuff. And have you ever had this conversation about this stuff like this before? Like player agency. Well, is it really about agency or is it about setting expectations, and how do we set expectations? And then like, where does the skill for like understanding how to get what you want out of the game across, and if it matches what's being presented?
I'm trying to think if I've ever, obviously I'm sitting here on the microphones with you having a conversation about this stuff. So I've talked about this stuff,
sure,
but I don't know that I've ever talked about it in terms of my game group sitting down and talking about this type of stuff.
It's one of those things that I think a lot of people just gloss over, but I think it's worth exploring. And that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode. But those are the three pieces, right? Expectations understood, skill level when it comes to creating and adapting to the game's parameters, and social ability, like soft skills. Like, can I reasonably and respectfully talk to other human beings about what I want?
I will say I have done the thing as a GM where when the players are making a decision that is basically going to either toss out everything I have prepared for the session or have really bad consequences that they don't really want to engage with, I will have that conversation with them.
Yeah, it's important to do.
This is going back to a science fiction game I ran where they had been told, this mining space station is out of contact. Go there, find out what's going on. They arrived, they found out the place had been taken over by pirates. The main force of pirates was off doing something at the moment. They dealt with the ones on the station. The next session was supposed to be them preparing to deal with the pirate captain and his crew when they got back. But we started that next session, and one of my players, who I adore, but he can be sometimes a little contrary. He's like, well, we did what we were told. We found out what was going on. Let's get out of here.
I think we had this conversation, maybe not about this specific thing, but like maybe another example. I can't remember. It was a while ago.
I probably talked about this on the Gnome Cast.
Yeah, probably.
But I basically looked at him because none of the other players were arguing with him. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But we're ending the session here because I don't have anything else prepared for you.
Yep.
And you have to be comfortable with the fact that all of the civilians on this space station are going to be murdered. And he was like, oh, okay. He's just thinking, letter of the law, he did what he was supposed to.
Sure.
But that was not the spirit of the thing, which is why I always tell my players in the beginning, session 0, I expect them to be big damn heroes.
Yes, and that has a connotation. And that's what you were absolutely right to stop the game and be like, that is not the big damn hero thing to do, right? Like, you should probably do the big damn hero thing. My Rapscallion game, and I'll talk about some tools in a second, but my Rapscallion game, it's gotten a little bit darker. They're pirates. They do piratey things sometimes. And when we did our session 0, the game was about being like whimsical, fun, piratey adventures, right? Like that's what we wanted. That's what they wanted to play. And I was kind of down with that. Especially my wife, Jen, that's what she wanted to do. And she's like, this is too dark for me. Can we like not be terrible human beings? And can we just go back to like the whimsical fun thing? And they're like, oh, okay, guy. And I was like, yeah, we should probably talk about this. So after the session, at the end of that session, when we were talking about that, we decided to dial it back a bit, like go back to make sure there's more whimsical fun stuff along with the kind of serious-y type more stuff that's going on in that game, which I'm not going to talk about, is not for public consumption.
I did also have a D&D example related to this. When I ran Dragon Heist, I had a player who was playing a paladin in the Lords of Alliance. And the way Dragon Heist goes, there's a whole bunch of money you can get your hands on at the end. And the idea is like, it's a good idea to give some of it back to the city of Waterdeep because it was stolen from the city.
Yep.
And this player was like, yes, we get all the money. And I'm like, so you are a member of the Lord's Alliance.
Uh-huh.
You are supposed to be in service to the people who run the city. I will tell you right now, if you do not come to some sort of agreement about giving some of this money back to the city, you are breaking your oath and you are no longer going to be a paladin.
See, there's nothing wrong with that. You gave them a choice. You're like, you can actually keep all the money, but you'll cease being a paladin. Or you could just give back some of the money and do the thing that your oath decides, that the game and the narrative decides that you should be doing. Or it wasn't like a no, it was like, here's your choice.
Yeah. Now, going back to those grognards I was mentioning earlier, there are a lot of people out there who will advocate for, don't tell the player it's going to happen. They should suffer the consequences, and they will tell you to just do it and screw over the player. And it's like, no, don't do that.
There's a couple of reasons. One, it's not good faith play. It's not good faith gaming, right? Like it's not being open and honest with your players. It's not creating that space of trust. And look, the other way, if you set that up early in your session 0 or whatever, like that's how we're going to play this game, then that's fine. But that doesn't sound like how this game was being played.
No, that's not ever a game I'm going to be running like that. But it's like, in those advice columns, those advice forums out there, there's a lot of people who are just like, well, if a player did something stupid, make them suffer for it.
Sure.
That's not going to create a better player.
I'm not living in the world where I want to teach with the stick anymore. I'd rather just teach.
Mm-hmm.
And by teach, I mean, teach in some cases, like, cool, that's not really how we play this game, right? Like, this is not the feel that we're going for. That's teaching. That is educating to what we expect playstyle to be.
I still remember when I first ran a D&D game for my nieces. I was running like the opening stuff in Mines of Phandelver, where you have the Goblin Caves, and the entrance to the Goblin Caves has 3 tunnels.
Yep.
There were 3 of them. They're like, okay, let's split up.
Yeah, and then you're like, you gotta tell them.
Like, no, kids, let's have a talk.
Yeah.
Let's have a moment.
See, that's good.
Remembering that not everyone is going to like. Those grognards would have been like, okay, split up, and then they all die, and now you've got 3 kids who never play D&D again because I made them cry and murdered their characters.
Yep. The other thing about your example with the guy from the Lord's Alliance is like, he said we get all the money, but his character might not feel that way.
Right.
The players and the characters are not the same person if you're playing with that idea in mind.
Mhm.
And to me, that feels like the more modern play style that is more prevalent these days amongst D&D players. I'm not saying it's every table, but I think it's a lot more tables than not. And to me, that is the whole idea of you can just, is the meta game. Like, you can just meta game it by telling them outside of that character level of play what you believe you should expect from them, and then ask them if they're okay with that or if they have a different thought. And sometimes that's like, you ask that person, like, look, man, this is a choice that you're going to have to make. If you don't, this is how I see the narrative going.
Yeah.
Me as a player, I could have been like, you know what? How about this? I will take the money and I'll lose my paladin hood and I'll just switch over to sort of being a fighter rogue, because I think that would be a fun way for my character to go if we're going to keep playing this game.
Right.
Now we're having a conversation about where the story can go, and they're giving you ideas and telling you reasons why they think they want to go that way.
That player was way too in love with Smite to give that up, though.
Sure, right? Like, I'm obviously, right? Then they had their mechanical reason for keeping their paladinness. The other tool that I suggest for people like this is, like, there's nothing wrong with, like, kind of doing like a redone session 0 mid-campaign as like a refresher and an updater. You don't just have to do these things once, and they don't have to take as long the second time, right? Usually the first time you're doing character stuff too, but like, you can go back over, like, cool, man, this was our tone, this was our this is our concept, this was our these are our safety tools, this is our situation, right? Like, are these things all still true? Like, is everybody good with this? Do we want to switch it up? You could do that pretty quickly at the end of a session, at the beginning of a session, but I would do it at the end of a session, never at the beginning of a session, so that you don't have to, like, adjust on the fly. But those things are all good tools. The metagame, just talk to them about it, and then the redo your session 0 stuff mid-campaign as a refresher and an updater.
Yeah. And it's just a good idea. It helps you kind of keep a finger on the pulse of your campaign.
Yep. That's my primary reason for doing Stars and Wishes all the time. It's just so I can keep a finger on what people are liking and what people are hoping will happen.
So what about sandbox campaigns? Should there be limits in a quote-unquote sandbox game?
Yes, there should. It's whatever the box is should be the limit. And the box is whatever the GM can handle. To me, honestly, that is what it is. Now, I do have, like, a one side thing to that is, like, sometimes the box should be whatever the players can handle. And what I mean about the box, like, people forget about the idea of the box in the sandbox. There are walls. Like, you can't go beyond the walls, even if the walls are invisible. I think that's why people are so fond of the Barovia campaign, the Curse of Strahd campaign, because it's literally a sandbox. Like, it's got walls. The mists are the walls. You can't go outside of them. And there's just different things that you can do inside of that while there is kind of like a main quest. I think the way that I like to put it is, for those people who are video game players, Oblivion, there's like a main quest in Oblivion that you can follow, but there's all these side things that you can do. I'm not sure if Fallout 4 works the same way, or one of those Fallout games works the same way, but, like, there's just these spaces that you can just do other things. Now, I think that's a terrible way to put together a role-playing game. My Rapscallion game is very much a sandbox game, and the way that I've done it, stealing from the D&D thing, I mean, it's not really stealing from the D&D thing, I was doing it before they put the quest cards in the boxes. Quest cards are really useful if you want to have a sandbox game, because it's good to have a map for them. The map is your box. If people want to go beyond the map, like, why? What's your character going to get out there? And hopefully there's, like, some sort of situation inside the box that actually makes sense, whatever it is. Hopefully your game has set some of that up for, like, giving characters direction and giving the whole party direction in some way. But that doesn't mean, like, after a session or two, you can't start putting more quests on the table. So, like, at one point, between the quests that I provided, or the story threads that I provided, and the story threads that the characters created themselves, which were numerous, like 6 of them, I had 13 index cards with quests that they could write the stuff on the back of them with. And then we had a giant map that everybody got to draw on to help make this world, and we just kept putting things on the map. And now they're just doing stuff. Like, they have choices, and they have timers, and that's my sandbox campaign. Now, I can handle that.
I've struggled with sandbox games in the past. I've talked about this before. I like there being a cohesive story to a game, and sometimes with sandboxes, it feels like it's the GM sitting back and going, well, the important stuff is still going to happen whether or not you guys get involved, so you guys go do what you want. And I always feel like my character doesn't matter in that grand scheme. But I think that's more of an issue with, yes, the players have agency to go wherever, do whatever, engage with whatever they want within that sandbox. But if the GM has an idea of what the quote-unquote main plot is and the players aren't engaging with it, they still continue on with their main plot while the players do whatever. And that I've always felt unbalanced with that type of game.
To me, the important thing to make that main plot and the characters, giving them agency to kind of like go around and do these other things, is that main plot has to have some sort of personal effect on them, or they have to be personally tied to it in some way. So like I will, this is why I didn't want to talk about their upscaling game in the intro. It's a fantasy game. I'm perfectly fine talking. It's not D&D. Sorry, everybody.
Hey, we talk about all fantasy games here.
Yeah. One of the characters is playing a playbook called the Navigator, and the Navigator is in love with the sea, the stars, and the wind, or can be. And those are physical manifestations of the sea, the stars, and the wind. So the sea's name is Chloe, or at least the part of it that the character is in love with. And one of the other characters, it was a mountebank, which is, they're like a warlock, essentially. They have like a tie to a demonic entity that is like bound inside of them. They've actually managed to throw that off, and now they're a gunslinger. But during one of the sessions, an entity from the void that was directly that character, the mountebank's fault, bit the sea when the Navigator called her to come help, and now she's infected. And if the sea becomes completely infected and corrupted, the world is going to be in a very, very much worse state. And the characters and the things that they want to do, which one of them is overthrowing this bank, is not going to be able to be done. Like there's a group out there that runs, that is like the law in the sea. They run all the banking in the sea. One of the other players is playing a swashbuckler, and they, as a player, as a person, they're very interested in finance and banking stuff. So they want to make money, create businesses, and then like overthrow that bank, because they're kind of like the lawful, neutral, lawful-ish evil type people out in the sea. So they won't get to do that if the sea goes bad. Right, like, so, and they have personal reasons to go deal with the sea and things to make up for. So that is how I've managed to tie some of these things together.
Yeah, because you made it personal.
Correct. That is my best. If you make it personal, they'll want to go do it.
Right.
Also, if you're like, what I said, the guy that's playing the captain, I was like, yeah, all these things are going on and this is going to get real bad. And he's like, well, you've scared the ever-living love out of me, Chris. I guess we're going to go do the thing. Because they only have so much time. As they sail around, I built a mechanic for like time advancing. So they know that they only have so much time, like weeks, to get stuff done. And as they sail different places, it costs weeks. I
did at one point run a more sandbox style game. Again, we're going to step away from talking about fantasy because this was Savage Worlds ETU, East Texas University.
It's like fantasy-esque. It's like urban fantasy.
Yeah, it's urban fantasy. It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Scooby-Doo, that type of stuff. And the reason that one worked for me is because the sandbox was the university and the town next to it.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a much smaller scope of what was going on. And so the players could engage with the hooks that they found interesting, while I could still keep throwing the advancing plot in front of them so that they could engage with it and have that bigger scale story happening as well.
Plus, that game's got some good structure because it's got the semester play. Episodes or scenarios happen first semester, second semester, first year, and then you can have a semester, you can have a season or year break, just like they do in Buffy, and then come back for the next one, right? Like,
yeah.
There's some good game structure to help with that, and then there's some good like setting structure to help with that. Like all these expectations are like set. Like we're playing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Don't leave Sunnydale. Stay here. Even if you want to, find a reason to stay.
Yeah. So how do you best redirect player choice when it is hurting the game?
So I think the best way is the way that you said earlier, is just like, I'm just going to lay it out. Like this is how it's going to affect the game, and maybe can we try something else? If it's against the session 0 stuff or whatever the game parameters we've previously discussed are, it's much easier to just point at that. Your big damn heroes thing is like, they want to do X. Like, we said we're playing a big damn heroes game. You'll have to explain to me why that is a big damn heroes move. How is that inside of the parameters of the things that we set up? And after that, like, I'm curious as to what they're trying to accomplish with the choice, right?
one of the things I always advocate for, respect the competency of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
The characters live in this world. They are going to have a better understanding of what is in front of them than the player will. And so sometimes if you can reframe things from your character would recognize X, Y, and Z about this situation or this person or this location or whatever, and maybe that will make them reframe or change what they were trying to do because now they have a better understanding of things. For example, in the old Margrave game, when they took out the warden of Castle Stephen's store, one of my players was like, "Oh yeah, we get to raid this place now," and I'm like, "You're going to take a second and realize there are still a dozen guards in this place who are probably not going to be happy that you killed their boss."
Yep.
Yes, you could try and stay here and raid all the cool stuff out of it and make Anne scramble through the book to find treasure and stuff to give you. But you should also understand that you're going to turn this into a way bigger fight than you already dealt with.
Yep. And it might not go the way that you want it to.
Yes.
Or maybe it could if that's really what you guys want to, and maybe I'll just need to take a week to figure out how to do it. Any answer that you can think of there is the right answer as long as you talk about it. The other thing is like when he's like, all right, we can raid this place. What is the player trying to accomplish? Like, what do they want out of this? Do they just want more power? Would it be fun for them to have a butt ton of gold? If that's the case, then you can be like, look, if what you're looking for is that, like, we'll figure that out later. I can provide some opportunities for that to happen.
That player specifically wanted more gold so they could afford to enchant their special weapon.
So they wanted to enchant their special weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the goal.
Yeah.
All right, I know that you're trying to do this. We'll get there. You don't have to do this and compromise who your character is to get to the thing that you actually want. I'll make sure that it happens within a reasonable amount of time. And that's what I'm talking about, everybody out there. Like, all you have to do is talk about it. Like, I hate to say it, but sometimes the best thing to do is just ask them what they're really trying to get at instead of being like, that's weird. Even in my head, I'll often go like, well, that was weird, but I'll never say it out loud because I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah, it's like, what are you trying to achieve?
Yes.
What is the thing you are looking to get out of this? Because there are still players who will, again, the show me on the doll where the GM hurt you, because they don't want to tell the GM what they're trying to achieve because they think the GM will screw it up. And it's like, that's not my job. That's not what I'm here for. But I need to know what you're trying to do so I can help better understand the actions you're taking and what you want out of them.
It's funny, too, because you say that where the doll has the GM hurt you, like, there's those players. And there's the players that are like, I don't know how to express what I want because I'm not used to playing these kind of games. And then you might need to take a different tact with them to try to draw out what they're actually trying to get at.
A new player versus an old player who's had some bad experiences.
Yeah. And anything in between. Like, usually when you have the people that have played a bunch that have a bunch of experience, you've kind of like figured it out. But even those folks can have issues if they have a different expectation from other game mastering and play styles. Like, it takes a little time to get them up to speed in your play style and build that trust.
So is there anything players can do to keep their agency but still help the GM?
Yes, absolutely. So like if the GM is the one limiting the agency in a way that feels bad to play, it is okay as a player to bring it up. Those game parameters I talked about earlier are for everybody, not just the game master. Mm-hmm. That's why they're really important to have and to understand. One of the worst things for me when I sit down to a game table, even a one shot, is like not understanding what's okay and what's not okay. I'll actually give you an example. The game that we played together that I had to stop playing, the one that you guys play on Saturdays sometimes, I did not understand what was okay and what was not okay in that online space. I'm playing a character that I played before that is pretty over the top. And I asked if it was okay for me to be over the top. And then we had a session where we're playing other people's characters too. And I wasn't sure what was okay when other people were playing other people's characters in the scene.
Gotcha.
Because in my head, and I should have asked, my head is like, if it's my character in the scene, like the one that I primarily avatar for, I should be able to take the forefront of a thing. And if it's not my character, I should be a supporting actor to the other people that are playing their primary characters. That caused friction because I didn't understand, and it messed the thing up.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation of understanding expectations and what is supposed to be going on. I've definitely had games where I'm like, I don't understand what is supposed to be happening here.
There's another thing about that scene too, like there were giant gas bouncing cat monsters, right? That was the scene that happened in. So that's a scene where I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. In my head, it's ridiculous, right? So it's okay to be ridiculous.
But it was a different tone than what was other people were.
Correct. That was previously set before that. So like, if we're going to be ridiculous, I'll be ridiculous. That actually happened. I was playing in a game with some of the Gauntlet folks. It was the Cave of 1,000 Swords. We were playing like Trophy Gold. The session we played before that was not that. It was like a horror movie. So I was playing a very specific way, but we got to it like very much with the horror goggles on, essentially, like that lens. Then we're playing Sword of 1,000 Caves, and there's just like 1,000 swords in these caverns, like everywhere. I'm like, well, this is silly. So yeah, I'm a little bit sillier, a little bit more animated up for that one. And I don't think that's quite the tone that was going for, but it was also like, that's just how I felt about it, right? Like, because nobody explained it to me that we were still going to play with the desperate horror goggles on.
Gotcha. I think also players can, again, like we said earlier in the episode, sit down to play the game the GM has brought to the table. You know, like if the GM has, there's a big quest or there's a big plot hook or something like that, engage with it. Engage with the other players. Engage with the other players in a way that brings them into the game. You know, I think doing a lot of those things will allow the GM to keep moving with what they brought to the table, but also allow you to have a better experience engaging with it.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that I was getting is don't assume things.
Yeah.
Just ask a question. You're better off asking a question than making an assumption.
And if it does turn out to be a situation where the GM is railroading you, have that conversation.
Yeah, ask the question.
We did a thing so we could avoid having to deal with this. We were successful at doing that. Why did you erase all that work?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, being passive aggressive is not the best way to go about it. Or even just being accidentally like side comment type thing. Like even after the fact, I remember I was running a game. I won't name names, but and it was a good campaign. It was like one of the last sessions of the campaign. After the game was over, after that last session was over, somebody's side said like I could see the line that you wanted us to take, and I didn't get mad at that moment, but I was pretty mad about that because I'm like, it's not how I run a game. Like you could have done the other thing. I didn't say it out loud, but like you could have done the other thing if you wanted to. It would have been bad. I explained why it was bad. Like they wanted to blow up a building. I'm like, I would have killed a lot of people. They're like, it's worth killing a lot of people to save the world. I'm like, if that's how you feel, that's fine. You could have went and done that and dealt with the Shoggoth in the basement. Like, not that you knew it was there, but it was there. They probably would have died if they'd done that. But they did the other thing, but I didn't like tell them to do that thing. They just chose to do that thing, and instead of like go and blow up the building and kill a lot of innocent people.
I've experienced this before where I am trying to accommodate what the players are doing at the table, but still keep the main plot involved and front and center. And in the background, I am adjusting things and moving things around so they're still going to engage with that main plot line. And they guided how it went, where it went, and all that. And I did one of these at a one-shot at Origins once, and I had a player go, yeah, that was fun, but it was way too much of a railroad. And this was specifically the player that prevented them from actually following the adventure that was laid out in what I was supposed to run.
You're not helping anybody by saying stuff like that, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, not you, the person that said the thing.
If you felt it was a railroad, you could have offered constructive criticism.
Sure.
Hey, where did you feel like you were being denied the ability to do what you wanted?
Or maybe during the game, be like, what's the deal? Like, what are we supposed to be doing here? Like, you can ask that question.
Yeah.
People out there in listener land, like, you just ask the question.
Oh, yeah. And I've also been in situations before where the GM mentions something and we're all like, yeah, whatever. It's not mentioned in a way that we feel like it's important or relevant to us. And then when we try and figure out where we're going to go next, the GM's like, well, what about that? And I'm like, what about it? Why would we investigate that? Why would we go there? There was nothing there that seemed like it would draw our characters in. And if this was a GM running a module and he had mentioned that this thing was happening, but didn't do it in a way that we understood what was important about it.
That's the thing right there. It's that the players didn't understand what was important, and the game master needs to make sure that they do. And if the players don't, they should probably speak up, like, we don't really understand what's happening here.
Yeah.
I feel like people get bent out of shape about having that as part of their game because they want to be playing in that player space so much. People call it immersion. It's not.
It's not.
I get that everybody wants to be immersed in their games. I understand that. Immersion isn't about playing in the character space all the time. There's a whole different conversation, but that's not what it is. Like, I mean, if you really want that experience, go LARP. You can get way closer to that experience by doing that. Even parlor LARPs, there's tons of them. Just do those. Every time you pick up and roll the dice, man, you've broken immersion. I'm just throwing it out there. Every time you look down at your character sheet, you've kind of broken your immersion. It's just kind of the thing, right? I don't know. Feel free to send me hate mail. That's fine.
Don't send Chris hate mail.
AngeMurray@gmail.com. I'm just kidding. I have no idea if that's actually your email address.
It's not, but go ahead and try. Some Ange out there is going to have a really bad day.
Really bad day.
So what advice do we offer GMs when players are pushing those boundaries?
I think the why is important. So, like, why are they pushing? What's the reasoning? Are they not getting what they want out of the game? Are they bored? Do they want to try something else? Do they just not understand, like, what the play of the game is supposed to look like? Did they get hurt by a GM in the past? Any of those things. You need to understand before you can act as a game master to, like, shift it back into a place where everybody's kind of on the same page. So ask the questions.
It's important to be introspective and take a step back and examine. And do this even if your games are going great. Take a step back. What worked? What didn't? What did the players engage with? What are they enjoying? Because if your players are pushing against the boundaries of what you have prepared to run, there's something happening there.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a bad player. Could also be, again, they don't understand what they were supposed to be doing next or what the important things to be focusing on were.
Yep. Miscommunication is another one.
Yeah. The players have other things they think are more important. It is extremely possible for you to have your main plot that you think is super juicy and super interesting and it be incredibly boring to the players and them not be interested and they want to go back to the bar and talk to the bartender because he was way more interesting.
Yep, that could happen. That's bad.
Take a step back and examine, why is this happening? How is it happening? What can I do to get the players and their characters more involved in the stuff that I want to be running?
Yeah. And those questions that I listed, those are the basic ones. You can come up with others that are more pertinent to your group's playstyle and game.
I think we've pretty much covered a lot of this. We could probably talk for a couple hours more, but...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this comes down to, it's just techniques around how to talk to people. And most role-playing games are about techniques, and it's important to discuss the techniques around how to talk to people. Like, that matters, and what is important to talk about, because, boy, you can start talking about things that don't matter at all, and then just end up getting frustrated with each other because you've not, like, addressed the actual problems. To I guess, recap some of the things that we talked about, when it comes to agency, you need to understand what the rules are, the setting expectations, the situation expectations, the playstyle expectations, the player's expectations, and the GM's expectations. It's a lot of expectations that you need to understand. That's why role-playing games can be sometimes volatile, because as soon as any of those things become dismeshed from each other, that's probably not really a word, but I don't care, then you can have these miscommunications and these problems where people feel like their agency is being violated, or game masters feel like they're being bullied around by players that don't want to do the thing that they put in front of them.
Yep.
And then after you've managed to figure out that kind of stuff, it'll go a lot smoother for you.
Have the conversations.
It's weird. Those things I addressed are kind of like I don't want to call it a social contract. It's not a social contract. It's like your game contract, right? Like, this is the game we're playing. Here's all the pieces of it. We should do these things.
Exactly.
No time for rest, you two. Get on with your downtime research.
Every episode, we're going to look for something related to D&D that we want to pass along to the listeners. It might be products, websites, videos, or podcasts, but it will always be something that we think will enhance your D&D experience.
Look, as often as Jared and I talk about superheroes, I'm going to take a brief step away from our fantasy RPG content and recommend Dispatch.
It's only going to take 8 hours of your life. Go do it.
It's amazing. It's available on Steam and PS5 from Ad Hoc Games, which includes some of the people from Telltale Games. It is awesome. You get to be the dispatcher responsible for the worst team at the Superhero Dispatch Network.
The Z Team.
And it is amazing.
Fantastic. Other descriptors that are positive.
Amazing voice acting.
more descriptors that are positive.
Amazing animation.
Yeah, it might as well be an animated TV show. You just happen to get to play a game while you're watching the animated TV show. And if you turn on the QuickTime event thing, you get to do part of the animated TV show with your QuickTime stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And then the actual dispatching is fun.
It is.
I want the actual dispatching to like give me a little separate side game where I can just do that.
Just do infinite dispatching?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I do love me a good management sim game. I have lots of them in my Steam account, so like that part was a good time for me. For me, I have some news things to bring up. On a sad note, Tim Kask passed away. If you don't know who Tim Kask is, he is the very first full-time employee at TSR, the people that originally made Dungeons & Dragons. My favorite bit of history concerning Tim Kask is that he was the creator and editor of the first 33 issues of The Dragon, which would become Dragon Magazine. If you've ever read Dragon Magazine, it was on Kask who split up, I believe, the Strategic Review into 2 different magazines, one for board gaming or wargaming, and then The Dragon for specifically D&D.
A lot of good stuff came out of Dragon Magazine.
Historic publication for us tabletop role-playing gamers, right? In other news, for you D&D fans out there, James Hake joined Wizards of the Coast as a senior D&D designer. If you don't know who James Hake is, he's written tons of stuff. He worked with and for a long time with the Ghostfire Gaming people. He's done tons of things. We mentioned Waterdeep Dragon Heist. He was one of the designers on that project. I can't remember offhand the other things he's done, but he's helped write a couple of books with WotC. He's also done a bunch of the stuff with the Critical Role folks. I think he was a contributing designer to the Wilder Mountain Guide, and I think you got the book for Christmas. That one, yeah, that Tal'Dorei. I think his name it's right there on the front. I could see it.
Yeah, it's right there on the front.
Yep, he's one of the designers for Tal'Dorei Reborn.
Matthew Mercer, Hannah Rose, and James J. Hake.
Yep, and he's done tons and tons of other stuff. So I feel like D&D is in a good space with the design team that they have right now. So I'll be curious as to see what they come up with. And on a fun AP note, the Kansas City Chiefs, that's an NFL team for those who don't know, released an hour-long AP video of them playing D&D that was really well produced, had multiple cameras with different camera shots, great music like over it, and fantastic audio. The players, they were all dressed in bits of costuming and had some prop daggers and swords and such. It was pretty nifty. It's called Dungeons and Defense. You can go find it on YouTube. I will have a link in the show notes.
Was it just the defense players?
I'm pretty sure it was just defensive players.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was cool too because some of them some of them have never played D&D before, as far as I could tell. Like with the questions they were asking, somebody asked at one point, "What's a flail?" And then the game master, I forget what her name is. She's actually I just subscribed to her after watching it. She was really good, and she did a good job describing what a flail is. She's like, it's a stick with a chain on it and something sharp at the end of it that you swing and hit somebody with it. And the player was like, "I'm gonna flail that guy then."
That is amazing. We are happily part of the Polygamers Podcast Network, helping you run and play your best games. We think you'll enjoy another Polygamers podcast like
The Gnome Cast. Several gnomes, usually, from gnomes to get together to talk about gaming topics and themselves in an effort to entertain you and avoid being thrown in the stew. Although the next episode will feature Senda interviewing somebody that is involved with LARP.
And the next episode after that will also be another interview, but I'm going to keep what that is a secret.
Ooh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I can't wait to edit it.
We've used up all of our resources, so I think it's time for a long rest. I hope this adventure was rewarding for you, and we hope you go exploring with us when we start our next adventure.